What's poppin', everyone? My name is Tristan and welcome to Talking with Tristan. Have you ever wanted to start something so bad, like a business, podcast, or YouTube channel, that you would start researching everything that needs to be done, then realizing that there's so much work right in front of you that you become overwhelmed with tasks and left feeling paralyzed, unable to start? Then, your dreams start to drift away until it's clouded with other problems. In this episode, we're going to be talking about overcoming task paralysis. I've been wanting to start a podcast for years, but I got bogged down with what to name the podcast, or how to have a successful podcast, or what's the best podcasting equipment. I started to overthink these tasks, which eventually led to procrastination. Tracy Matthews from Thrive by Design podcast said, "Perfectionism and overanalyzing is just a form of procrastination." And I feel that. I'm not getting anything done. Another thing I noticed when I was digesting all this information, I was just taking on others' beliefs and experiences as my own, instead of just experiencing it and learning it for myself. For an example, I looked up how long a podcast should be and what's the best podcasting equipment. When I first saw this information, it was dead set in my mind that I needed to have lengthy episodes and the best podcasting equipment in order to have a successful podcast. Now, if you can imagine having a set time limit on your podcast and needing to get enough information to hit a quota with the proper equipment when you're broke as fuck can be a bit stressful. It definitely stopped me from creating. Instead, I could have just recorded a podcast with my iPhone and everything I needed to say and just post it. There's no need for obsessive thinking about problems that haven't surfaced yet. Just tackle the problem that you have right in front of you and fine tune as you go. Another obstacle I ran into while starting this podcast is niching down. I was getting stuck on what niche my podcast should be. There's so many different topics to talk about, and it just left me paralyzed once again. The thing is, I don't want to niche down. I've niched down a few times on social media, and I just felt caged in. When I tried to expand to different niches, my audience was not engaging with my content, and it made me feel sad. Like I had to stick to my niche in order to stay relevant. I started thinking that my audience was only there for what I provided and not for who I am. I didn't want to talk about the same topic over and over again while we had this big ass world with lots of things to experience. I know it could be off-putting hearing that this podcast doesn't have a niche. I mean, you don't really know what you're getting into. So here's a few topics that inspire me, but this podcast won't be limited to life, social media, personal development, and entrepreneurship. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about how to deal with task paralysis. First off, you have to be aware of what's happening. If you aren't aware, then you'll be walking aimlessly until the realization hits. And I'm really hoping this podcast episode is the realization you need. Reframe the way you think. Ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? Then ask yourself, what's the best thing that can possibly happen? You might realize the worst case scenario isn't so bad, so why not go for it? The way you speak to yourself matters. Also, listen to how you feel. You have all the answers inside of you. Trust your gut and don't overthink. Lower your expectations. You might be setting the expectations for yourself really high. Give yourself some grace and don't be so hard on yourself. Also, throw perfection in the trash. Realize being perfect won't get you anywhere in this world. When you are striving for perfection, your work might not see the light of day. So who's going to enjoy it? Find joy with imperfection and be open to feedback from your peers. It'll help alleviate stress and build stronger connections with others. And surround yourself with positive support. The people around you matter. Would you rather have someone pushing you towards your dreams or steering you away? When you have a strong support system, you become unstoppable. And just do the damn thing. Yeah. Shia LaBeouf was right. If you're still having trouble with starting, let's take a step back for a little bit and look at the task that you're having trouble with starting, and let's see if we can break down this task into even smaller tasks and just hit those. It'll be easier. Just start collecting the little victories and they will eventually snowball into bigger victories. In this community, we are going for the little victories. All right, so those are some ways that can help you deal with task paralysis. Now that we talked about that, I want you to pick up a project that you put on the back burner and take some actions building your life the way you deserve. I'm still working out the details of this podcast. I don't really have a proper intro, outro, and I just came up with the podcast title today. I really want to show you that you don't need to have everything figured out to start. The most important step is starting. Let's see where this podcast goes. Cue the outro. Oh wait, I don't have an outro. Well, besides that, thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to rate the podcast and share it with a friend. And stay saucy. Hasta la pasta.